Today, I want to talk about Charles Wright, Jalen Milroe, and what's going on with Texas quarterbacking and how Quinn Ewers fits into this and a bit of trash talk. And all that's coming up after the bumper.
Don't be cornering me. Hold up. Time. You gotta help me with that corner shit.
What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on the step mill. Consider hitting the like and subscribe button because I upload a video every single day. So it's college football related, sports related. We have a good time. Today, I want to talk about Jalen Milroe and Charles Wright and Quinn Ewers. But I want to start with a quip that I put on the Twitters. I'm half serious here, but I'll unpack that. When your quarterback gets flipped to Bama and you respond by flipping the Iowa State QB commit, that is the only statement about your recruiting that matters. Iowa State isn't in the Milky Way or isn't in the same Milky Way as Alabama, yet it's Iowa State who beat Texas in 2019, self-owns at or free at UT. So to which I get it, right? This is inciting, right? This is basically me being a pro wrestling trash talker because many of you will know that Chandler Morris was committed to Arkansas. His dad got fired, and then Lincoln Riley is able to bring him on board. And I have been very vocal about, don't tell us that Chandler Morris was the guy that you wanted all along because we all know that you made a play for Bryce Young, and it came down between Oklahoma and USC. He picked USC, and then he ended up flipping to Alabama. And then there's this bit about you can't stack good quarterbacks on top of each other. I agree that you can't stack good 5 stars on top of each other. And, 5-star falling 5-star almost never happens. But if you look at Alabama in particular, you see Jalen Hurts, Tua Tagovailoa, Mac Jones, Bryce Young, Jalen Milroe. That is your succession line. Each one of those guys can play. And Mac came in with Tua. So, you already had your succession plan in place there. Now, what I find to be interesting about Charles Wright is the comparison. He's being compared to Mason Fine, which speaks volumes about his ability as a passer and the way that he sees the field, because Mason Fine is perhaps the second best player in all of North Texas history behind Mean Joe Green, right? It's also a dude that was undersized for many, goes undrafted in a very weird year where he doesn't get to go through his pro day and is getting a tryout with the Chicago Bears, and I hope he makes a team. In the meantime, he's going to be the quarterback's coach at Pawhuska, where Bryce Drummond is the quarterback. Yes, that's the Pioneer Woman's kid, and he's committed to North Texas. But talking about Charles Wright, we're thinking about this kiddo joining the 2021 class because you need a quarterback, and you take a quarterback every year, and yet and still, Tom Herman has taken 2 in 2 of the last 3 years, right? We're talking about Quentin Jackson, Hudson Card, and then we were talking about Casey Thompson and Cam Rising, with the thinking that somebody's going to go into the transfer portal at one point or another, and I can't see a way around that. The thing to stress about Charles Wright, though, is he's a great Mac Jones kind of player. And that sounds like a dig, but it's not, because if you look at Mac Jones and what he did over the last 3 years, I can talk myself into Mac Jones being one of the better quarterbacks of the 2020 college football season based on what he did in the last 3 games as a starter. Now, going 10-12 for 275 with 3 tutties against Western Carolina at Alabama is what you're supposed to do. But he had over 300 yards passing against both Auburn and Michigan, number 15 and number 14 in the top 25 rankings, respectively. But more than that, he looked good against Auburn, save 1 bad pick 6 and 1 that wasn't his fault. And then he carved up a really good Michigan defense that I thought was going to give Alabama everything that it wanted. He also has Najee Harris, Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle as his toys in that offense. So you don't really have to be that great, but you have to be better than Greg McElroy. Now, the thing that I find to be most interesting about the Charles Wright deal is how he was ready to commit to Texas, right? He just didn't have the offer, and he had committed to Iowa State, I think, because that's his best offer, and being a Texas legacy and being from the Austin area, you can understand why he would want to go to UT. It also is interesting in that Quinn Ewers committing to Texas as the 2022 quarterback and the number 1 quarterback in that class sent a lot of dominoes falling, right? It means that Oklahoma's off the board for him. Ohio State's off the board for him, as are others. And it means that Oklahoma's going to look elsewhere for a 2022 quarterback, and perhaps not a quarterback that's going to be as good as Caleb Williams, but you need to probably get another 4-star in there. You need to get a guy that is on par with a Tanner Mordecai. Tanner Mordecai was also Lincoln Riley's second choice, but so was Caleb Williams, right? So when we talk about these kids and we talk about the quarterback position in particular, watching how coaches are choosing to recruit to it is even more interesting now than it used to be because of the transfer portal. You just have to go ahead and assume you're going to lose one to grad transfer or just being disgruntled, maybe a bit of both, like Austin Kendall. But at Texas, where you're changing the offense, where you're no longer running power spread or what I call blackjack, you're going to be right if you know how to count, right? You're also looking for quarterbacks that can run Mike Yurcich's offense, and you want to be able to distribute the football through the air while also having a feature tailback as opposed to a platoon of tailbacks. And I think that they could be on to something, right? The problem has never been Texas recruiting, right? You look at the recruiting class right here, and I got it pulled up. Billy Bowman, Jatavian Sanders, Jordan Thomas, Maurice Blackwell, like they got dudes in this 2021 class, right? And as much as trash as I talk, on the level, they've been recruiting well. But what I find to be interesting now is with the commitment of Kelvin Gilliam to Oklahoma, Oklahoma now has the number one class in the Big 12, leapfrogging over Texas, who lost a commitment in Jalen Milroe, right? So it's basically a 2-for-1 for Oklahoma on that front. Now, what remains to be seen is which one of these quarterbacks is going to pan out, because there's an open question as to whether or not Jaquindon Jackson ends up getting an opportunity to be a quarterback at Texas and whether he might just get tired of it and want to play and they move him to wide receiver or they move him to a tight end position, because the word is Hudson Card has been looking really good. And perhaps he's a guy that can run that offense, but I still think that Casey Thompson is that dude, right? I think that Casey Thompson could be a better quarterback than Sam Ehlinger, but I've thought that since he was at Newcastle. And I know that going to Oklahoma was here or there for him, and then Texas had a place for him to go. Oklahoma didn't have necessarily a place for him to go, and yet he didn't want to make a decision until he wanted to make a decision. He went into the transfer portal. He came out of the transfer portal. I want to see what Casey Thompson looks like in a Mike Yurcich run scheme, because what Mason Rudolph was able to do with James Washington and Marcel Aitman and Justice Hill can't be overlooked, and it's just a better quality football team at Texas. That's not a dig. That's just a fact. You have better talent at Texas than you do at Oklahoma State, and they've been overachieving with a couple of guys that actually pop for them that are really good, like Chuba Hubbard, who was consensus All-American last year, and nobody was really thinking about him as being the kind of tailback that he turns out to be when he got to Oklahoma State. He is in the same stratosphere as Travis Etienne and one Najee Harris and Kenneth Gainwell at Memphis. Like, there's a group of tailbacks in this 2020 season that I can't wait to watch. The other one, though, is Bijan Robinson. And Bijan Robinson is going to be coming right into his own right about the time they get to 2022, right? Probably be the feature tailback in 21. So if you have that at your disposal and you know what you have in a Jake Smith, you know what you have in a Jordan Whittington, and you know what kind of receivers you're going to have in the future, you got to feel good about this if you're Mike Yurcich. On the flip side, losing Jalen Milroe to Alabama, gonna just hurt, right? Because now you got Texas guys, Texas high school football players, Kendrick Blackshear, right? James and Tommy Brockermeyer, Jalen Milroe, all committed to play at Alabama, with perhaps Tumise Adelier giving Alabama a really good look, not even playing into it for Texas. Might be Texas A&M, might be Florida. All right, that is it for me. Deuces.